Hey everybody, welcome to episode 9 of Frank About Health. This is Frank Harrison, your health advocate, trying his best to get every nook and cranny out there. I've spent a lot of time over the last 8-9 weeks discussing about specific disorders, discussing about economics and social impacts, not to mention discussing last week about employee health benefits and how they impact many employees and employers, especially with the way the U.S. economy has been with healthcare. But tonight, I'm going to take a little bit of a single approach with regards to a very, how do you describe it? It can be morbid, but it is essentially something that we all need to be aware of, and that is cancer. My own personal reason for discussing cancer tonight has to do with a friend of mine who lost a parent a few days ago, not to mention my own experience with my father having been in remission for the past 12 months, maybe 15 months from prostate cancer, and then other individuals that I've known suffering from colorectal cancer, my cousin who died last year because of breast cancer. I can go on, but I don't want to specifically, other than to educate and empower you out there to know that there is a way to live life with cancer, and hopefully while it's in remission, getting the best proper treatment, understanding what other kind of alternative treatments there are for you other than the traditional chemotherapy, radiation, other kinds of techniques that unfortunately or fortunately, depending on the type of cancer you have, take a long time to help and treat the disorder. Cancer can be life-altering at best. How so? Well, statistically, it is the second largest cause of death in this country after heart disease. However, recent studies have shown that there are 22 states in this union that actually cancer is the leading cause. New York is not one of them, but I don't want to exactly mention to you out there which states are, because the last thing I'd want to hear about is a big wave of migration from those states to the East Coast or whatever the story may be. Now, I figure it's probably appropriate to give you all out there a kind of general history of cancer, especially because in many ways it's not just one disease. It is a family of diseases. Many people have suffered from prostate cancer, leukemia, breast cancer, brain cancer, pancreatic cancer, colorectal cancer. The list goes on. And then we hear about celebrities who we can identify with who've died of specific disorders within the cancer family, but in some way, because of their status with celebrity, they've been able to educate people on those particular types of cancer to live a better quality of life. I'll give you more information about that towards the end of the show. But with respect to how this show is going to be broken out today, because I am by myself, there are no speakers here in the studio with me, I am going to go and look first at cancer itself. What is it? How is it basically understood and diagnosed? And also any comorbidities that might exist. Now, I could tell you, aside from the statistics of it being the second leading cause of cancer, that it usually is manifested with tumors, whether they're benign or whether they're malignant. And we pretty much hope that they're benign in most cases, especially if you go for early testing and find out that there's a way of preventing it from spreading. But those that are malignant, we can only hope that when you discover, if you unfortunately have a malignant tumor, that it can be removed or treated quickly. That's usually, from what I understand, about stage 2. I don't know which particular cancers have 3 stages, 5 stages, but I can tell you that usually in the second or third stage, it's still treatable, still manageable, and in fact, one can still have a good quality of life even if it's still in treatment and not yet in remission. The other thing I could tell you is that it has been said to be genetic in 5 to 10% of most cases, usually because of deviance in the DNA molecules of the individual who has the cancer. Now, there are environmental causes, too, which a lot of people can say because of our ozone layer or environmental toxins that are flowing out there because of industry or because of other kinds of waste or other kinds of things that could actually make our environment less tolerable. But most of it can be declared because of infections as well as tobacco. Now, tobacco has been understood to be a leading cause of cancer through smoking and through other ingesting of tobacco 25 to 30% of deaths are due to tobacco, and then at the same time, other toxic exposure. There are a recent study of 30 to 35% due to infections, like if you have hepatitis or if you've had hypoplomia virus. Actually, HPV is the virus that I'm trying to refer to. But if you scientists or doctors out there really want to understand more about the in-depth aspects of cancer and then how it was discovered in ancient times, Wikipedia is the best thing I can suggest. But I can overall tell you that cancer is something that needs to be continued in terms of learning. I mean, there's a process known as metastases, or sometimes when you hear mastocytosis or mastatize, that means that the cancer has spread. Essentially, that also teaches me, thankfully I'm someone who does not suffer from cancer, that teaches me that cancer is in itself a syndrome. When a person has a particular type of cancer, it should be understood that there's always the risk that it can become secondary or tertiary in specific ways. Let me give you an example. I have a friend of mine, let's just call her A for short, started with breast cancer. It went to her kidneys, then it went to her lymph nodes, then it went to her pancreas. Let's just say time is coming close to an end for her, and I hate to put it in that way, but she is ongoing with her strength and with her conviction that she's going to get through this with all of her prayer and all of her family support. But at the same time, when the reality sets in that the kind of cancer she has does not really have a longevity behind it, it's become an issue of acceptance and an understanding that while there is this window of time to continue with the type of cancer she has till the time when she moves on or transitions, she is able to get any kind of special meditation, yoga, herbal support, acupuncture, other kinds of alternative thoughts that she can come up with in her mind to try to remove the chaos that she feels continuously every morning, feeling like, is this the last day? Or what can I do to improve my life while I still have time? I can understand how someone with cancer can almost become their own philosopher. On one level, I think that that's a talent that you can, develop when going through a crisis like that. But one can only hope that that type of cancer, whatever the individual has, will be treated at some point. I've just mentioned pancreatic cancer, and let me explain a few details about that. What I find interesting is that in most cases, when people say, I have pancreatic cancer, the immediate consensus is, a death sentence. 2 weeks left. Maybe a month if you're lucky. Well, I can tell you there is a certain actor out there, for those of you who are into Dirty Dancing, by the name of Patrick Swayze. He was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, I would say probably 5 or 6 years ago. I don't exactly recall. But he lasted 2 years. Now, I think it may have been longer. But what I understand about him is that he completely took a positive mindset and continued to believe that no matter what it takes, he's going to continue to do what he was doing best, which was his acting, and he was going to continue to be there for his wife and for his other family members and completely do his best to have the kind of mindset to say, you know what? I have pancreatic cancer, a death sentence, but I'm going to let the sentence wait a while before execution. I think that's definitely something that people can walk away with in terms of inspiration. I know another person, Valerie Harper, for those of you Rhoda fans out there, who was diagnosed with a rare form of brain cancer about 3 or 4 years ago. At that time, she was told she only had 6 months. She's still alive and breathing today. I could also tell you that part of the reason is because that she was given the best treatment at Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles. And of course, I can advocate certain hospitals here in New York that really do their best to treat cancer and research it and come up with new technologies and treatments for it. I will shout out the NYU Langone Cancer Center. I will also shout out Mount Sinai's Cancer Center. And I will also talk about, for children who have cancer, St. Jude's Hospital for Cancer in Children. All right. Either way, what everyone should realize is while there are institutes out there to get the best treatment possible, you can only be best inspired in treating your cancer by thinking of your needs first. Now, I would say those needs, coming from the point of view of epilepsy, include looking for all the alternatives out there that others may or may not have indicated to you exist. In previous episodes of Frank About Health, I've indicated about finding healthcare abroad. I've indicated about finding different types of medications or even more potent treatments that really are not advertised heavily here. But it really takes a constant source of inner soul searching to understand that if you've got what people can say is a death sentence, you do your best to make the longevity of your life from the point of diagnosis to the point of eventual conclusion, to use yourself as an example of how to educate people about, okay, I have, for example, leukemia. How am I going to be able to educate those that also have leukemia or those that are trying to prevent it because it exists within the family genetics? This is how, if you're going to go and deal with a disorder such as cancer, try to use it as an asset for what you need to do with the rest of your life, what you need to do to educate your family, your friends, your loved ones, and in some cases, how to educate your doctors. I mean, I could tell you, I've educated so many people about epilepsy for the last 10 years. I would have to say that some of the doctors I've dealt with should hire me on staff. I mean, I'm not serious about that because I do have other intentions, especially with this show. But I have found that in the last year, having done a lot of research on epilepsy, that I have provided information to my neurologists that have found interesting in terms of further research and types of alternative treatments. But again, that's getting away from the topic of cancer. However, the one aspect of epilepsy and cancer is that it has been shown that certain medications can actually be the cause of brain cancer. And certain medications that you out there should be aware of if you have epilepsy or seizure disorder are Dilantin, phenobarbital, and Depakote. Do not or try to wean away from those medications so you can be avoiding any potential risk of brain cancer. Another thing is diabetes. Diabetes can be a leading cause of colorectal cancer, kidney cancer, or cancer that basically in most cases like pancreatic cancer is terminal. All right, and then overall, keep in mind that tumors, lumps, abnormal bleeding, sudden loss of weight, and infections are signs that you must take seriously in order to prevent any kind of cancer that one can have if they don't look out for their health on an annual basis. I would recommend everyone over the age of 40 to make sure, besides a regular internist, that you have an oncologist waiting for you. That way you can continue regular visits, especially if there's a history of breast cancer, colorectal cancer, or even prostate cancer. All right, while I've made this a little bit morbid for a beginning, I hope that in the second phase of the show, when I get into alternative care, that I will be able to inspire all of you out there to know how to deal with cancer, either within your family, if you've got loved ones with it, or if there are of you listening out there who actually have been diagnosed or have cancer. I hope to give you more education on how to increase the quality of your life going forward. So, speak to you in a few.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network.
Hello, I'm JC.
I'm Joan.
And welcome to 21st Century Entrepreneur. We bring education,
insight,
knowledge,
awareness,
trouble,
craziness, and fun
for you, the entrepreneur who's looking to build your business
and your community. Listen every Friday from noon to 1 Eastern on talkradio.nyc. And you can tweet us at 21st CE Radio or Talk Alternative.
Talking Alternative.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Frank About Health as I'm being frank about cancer. Overall, I've just given a general overview of cancer, its causes, some statistics about mortality rates, second leading cause of death in the U.S., however, 22 states. It's the first leading cause. I've gone overview about breast cancer, brain cancer, prostate cancer, and so forth and so on. But now I think it's best to go into alternative treatments. Essentially, I'm going to go into a personal story. My own father. He had prostate cancer about 2.5-3 years ago. It was already understood to be in its growth stage because what most men have to do when they get into their 40s and 50s is what they call a PSA. I think that's I think it's the kind of prostate test where they test the levels if you're from a 0 to a 4.0 or something like that, and then if you're at 4.0 and higher, the idea of prostate cancer is pretty significant. Well, he was reaching his 80s, and he had his PSA done, and it showed that it went from 1.2 to 4.5 in a matter of a few months. Now, what that did, of course, was alarm my whole family, including myself. And while he was able to understand that there were options, especially a man of his years, to freeze the tumor through cryogenics, as well as to eventually either remove a portion of the tumor, he decided to do the cryogenic route. And it worked. It worked for about 6 months. Now, what did that do to his PSA score? It reduced it from 4.5 to 1.2. However, it went to 3.0 within 3 months after that. So what he was able to then do was stop taking all the foods that were not good for him. Stopped eating sugar. Stopped drinking. Stopped taking alcohol. Stopped like rum. Rum was his favorite. Stopped eating chocolate. He basically went the route of eating a lot of greens. Essentially, my mother, who is in my own view, a nutrition freak, essentially made sure that every day and night he was having salads, and he was going for smoothies made of fruit and vegetables depending upon his mood. And what we discovered is that when he went back in to have part of the tumor removed, he also started taking on acupuncture as well as drinking a lot of things like ginger root. And my mother, who is a great cook, also used a lot of different spices like ginger, as well as some others, which I'll mention later. The thing is that as a result of that treatment, he has been in remission for about a year now, and his PSA score is below 1.0. Now, that to me is interesting because I know that most healthy males are at least 1.0. It's just that when you get in your older years, it can increase. Overall, what I discovered, in my own opinion, really, is that even though he was going through prostate cancer in the traditional means of treatment, the alternative route that my mother and a little bit of my own influence indicated he should do actually improved his quality of life significantly. Now, although I must admit he's taken sugar again, I find him still minimizing the amount he takes. Or, for example, while he's gone back to dark chocolate, he hasn't had rum or any alcohol in the last 5 years. Now, I also can say that my own experience with acupuncture actually determines how to, minimize the appetite, especially if it's stress-induced. So the person that he sees essentially has put pressure points in areas where he no longer has an appetite when not needed. In other words, he'll have his 3 meals a day, but he's only going to have it when he's hungry and not when he's just craving it. Because at the same time, the goal of that treatment is to prevent the cancer from coming back. Now, it is not foolproof that acupuncture or certain visualization is completely preventative of cancer. It does show significant results in its treatment, and I could say that many people that I know who have engaged in this kind of treatment are pretty much happier and at the same time feel complete while they continue to do other kinds of treatment that their doctors have told them in the past. So it's more holistic in the way that they've taken care of it. Now, I would say from my understanding of the people in my life who've died of cancer that these treatments are most effective in those with immediate cancers like in the lungs or in the kidneys or in the liver, things like that. What is still yet to be tried and true is those cancers like leukemia and brain cancer and pancreatic cancer and colorectal cancer, which in most cases today still has a high mortality rate. The thing that I want everyone out there to take from all this, though, regardless of the type of cancer you have, is that make sure that you go out there and look into acupuncture, Chinese herbal medicine, yoga, meditation, herbal teas, green tea, white tea. At the same time, the spice that I was thinking about was turmeric. Now, I am not a cook myself, but I know people who know really how to cook in many different ways. And I've seen ingredients like turmeric and ginger and thyme and basil and all of these things that I've only grown up on having the last few years myself, trying to do what I can to prevent certain other disorders. But the thing is I can say that when I've seen and also experienced those type of special ingredients in my nutrition, I feel energetic. I feel much more focused. I also feel more aware of whenever something is not feeling right, I get tested right away to see what it might be. And I've been fortunate to find that the only thing that I might still be experiencing are the symptoms of living with epilepsy. Now, I did mention earlier about how epilepsy has a comorbidity with cancer in terms of the brain and even the liver, but diabetes in itself is a focus for me because I want to understand how the whole process of sugar intake can actually affect metastasis in particular areas in the lower regions of the body. Now, I mentioned earlier about pancreatic cancer, which is, depending upon who you are, it's not really something that is totally understandable. But the fact that diabetes can link to pancreatic cancer just tells me one simple fact. It's for those of you who have to take insulin repeatedly are probably going to unfortunately have a comorbidity with your pancreas because it's doing a lot more work than it would have been doing unless you obviously continue to take your insulin. Now, that also tells me that while I've spoken on this episode about cancer, this is just one aspect of the whole human body that when you're taking care of one disease, make sure you're realizing you're taking care of another or even another. I as I've repeatedly said, and as you probably know from my background, I started with epilepsy, but I can say I've gone from epilepsy to diabetes, to cancer, to heart disease, to concerns about, the prostate and male functioning. But it's only because there is one link to the other. Nothing is unique and separate. It is all something that you have to keep a complete profile to maintain your quality of life and your focus and making sure that any kind of possible diseases that come into your life in the future are prevented at the highest rate possible. I was speaking to a few friends of mine recently about specific leafy vegetables that you can continue to take while you're on your own road to preventing any disorders, including cancer. And kale and spinach come to mind. I know I'm a spinach freak myself. There's all the ingredients in there that allow the iodine and other kinds of strength and enzymes and antioxidants to help you prevent any kind of abnormal cell growth, or even keep your energy flowing. But kale, to me, I got to be honest with you, kale is a new thing for me. I've only started having kale within my salads and within my drinks over the last 6 months. But the more I get used to it, the more I can see differences in my metabolism. So, and in my feeling as well about things. So I would recommend that if you don't like your kale salad, make it into a smoothie. I was talking to another friend of mine recently about vegetable smoothies, which I've seen in many different places, like if you're out there, Gray's Papaya, or even Juice Generation, which is located in Manhattan in the 70s. The thing is that I myself have never done it. I've done it once, but after having done the research on this particular topic of cancer, you can bet that when I have my smoothies, they're either going to be a combination of fruit and vegetables or vegetables only, depending on my mood. So overall, I think that whenever anybody is trying to keep their quality of life intact, whether they have cancer or not, there should be the continued effort in making sure that when you have the proper nutrition or when you have the proper focus about how you're going to treat yourself with or without a doctor's assistance, that you take into consideration that nutrition is key. I personally love green tea. I've been drinking green tea since I was 4. No, let's just say 14. But the thing is that I've also engaged in white tea. A lot of people ask me, Frank, why don't you drink coffee? Well, I actually can't because of epilepsy. But the reality is I never found it to be anything but, bitter chocolate. That's what it tasted like to me. But even today, I only drink water or tea. I don't drink sodas. I don't drink juices even because there's a lot of sugar in them, like orange juice. But what I do drink outside of those two are smoothies because I can ask them not to put the yogurt or the banana, but to put the strawberries, the blueberries, the raspberries, all the antioxidant berries that also help me lose weight at the same time. Now that I've done research on cancer, among other disorders, I'm going to incorporate vegetable smoothies into my diet. I guess I'm just going to have to start that tomorrow. In the meantime, though, I would say that while we had people like Patrick Swayze who was able to outlast his diagnosis by a couple years, he had done a lot of mindfulness treatments as well as continued to work as if he had nothing wrong. I think he even had a mini-series for a while prior to his death. But what it is not just about mindfulness, it is also about nutrition. Keep nutrition as priority 1. Then I would say priority 2, alternative treatments like acupuncture, visualization, yoga, meditation. I will then resort to the topic I had last week about healthcare and insurance. What is unfortunate about all of these wonderful treatments that are out there is that they are not covered by insurance. So I would say this is an investment in your quality of life, and like any investment, you should have yourself a budget so that you can make sure that the type of foods and vitamins, usually in the B category, by the way, but also any kind of doctors, like I've mentioned, acupuncture, body and brain, things like that. Make yourself a monthly budget and make sure that the investment in your QOL is at a high rate, just like your retirement account. Now, I think we're headed for another break in just a few, but what I'm going to do in the third segment of this show is I'm going to talk about some quotes that you should live with in your life to have a positive outlook going forward. And for those of you who are unfortunately going through cancer right now, my wishes are out there for you to just keep yourselves in a day-by-day mindfulness. Don't try not to be as depressed, but if you just keep yourself focused in the moment, you will find that living through this is possible. We'll be back in just a few.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network.
Hi, this is Rob Kay.
And I'm Callie Alpert.
And we're hosts of The Rob and Callie Show. Are you looking for a show that talks about real stuff like life, love, the pursuit of being yourself?
Then you have come to the right place, because we cover topics ranging from chivalry to gratitude to your relationship with money and everything in between.
So listen to us on The Rob and Callie Show, Tuesdays, 8 to 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on talkradio.nyc.
Talking Alternative.
Hey out there, segment 3, Frank About Cancer, episode 9 of Frank About Health. I haven't mentioned to you, if you want to hashtag me about this show, you can do hashtag Frank About Health on Twitter. At Frank Healthcare is my handle. As I said last week, I have about 400 friends out there who are tweeting me about these conversations, which makes me very happy. Thank you. And we would like to also continue the conversation even beyond this show when it finally airs and streams, and I send it out to all you guys for further listening. Speaking about listening, I want everyone out there to listen to a few quotes that I found this evening that helps people with a positive mindset, especially if you're dealing with a disorder like cancer. Whether it's cancer, leukemia, diabetes, or obviously why I keep referring to epilepsy, having these kind of thoughts are going to help you in keeping your focus and your quality of life. So here's one that I found interesting. Do not give up. The beginning is always the hardest. Obviously, the beginning could be the time of diagnosis, but yet, once you know what you have in front of you, and then you have a roadmap to build and then follow, It can become a process, can become a project, maybe an unwanted project, but it actually, at the end of the line or at the end of the journey on that project, you begin to learn more things about yourself, about the actual disorder, and what you need or what you have to educate others with it. Another quote that I found is that the only way to make sense of change is to plunge into it, flow with it, and join the dance. That's a quote from Mr. Alan Watts. I think that what I noticed about that is that it just made you experience the moment instead of worrying about when you received your diagnosis and what are you going to do to prevent the eventual destination. The thing is, it just reminds me, focus on the moment. And another one that comes from that same sentiment is life is so much brighter when we focus on what truly matters. Now, I've been talking about health. Health is basically who you are. You are your health. If you're happy and healthy, then you're a positive person and a positive influence on yourselves, your family, and on society as a whole. When you don't have your health, or it's not at the quality of which you need it, having the focus on maintaining it or living with it in a much better way with the proper care can help be a positive impact on society by using it wisely. For example, again, with me and my epilepsy and other kinds of diagnoses I've received, I decided to be a positive advocate for healthcare, such as on this show. And I also want other people to remember that a lot of this has to do with courage, or in some people, lack thereof. So one thing to try to either maintain or gain the courage is to remember that courage is the result of already being scared to death. So there's no reason to be any further scared than just to go ahead and build that courage. John Wayne actually had a quote, "Courage is being scared to death and saddling up anyway." With respect to dancing, as I mentioned earlier, I have experience in the music industry, and I used to promote clubs, and yes, I used to dance and impersonate different artists. But the thing is that there is a whole mindset to dancing, and one of them is life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning how to dance in the rain. Now, I'm not talking Fred Astaire here, but what I am talking about is making sure that when you are faced with a crisis, a health crisis, obviously, or even any other kinds of crisis you have in your life, just set it to a certain style of music in your mind. I personally just put my earbuds on and I'll start listening to particular artists or particular songs that help my mindset. But create a song of your own, even if it's just a harmony that you hum in your brain. The point is that when you layer it with some vibration of music, whether it's created on your own or exists out there by a certain artist, it keeps you in the flow and you're able to, quote unquote, dance in the rain of the storm. Another thing Hippocrates himself said is cure sometimes, treat often, comfort always. Life is mostly froth and bubble, but two things stand like stone: friendship in another's trials and courage in your own. That came from the late Princess Diana. As you can see, a lot of famous, recognized people with legacy have made these kinds of quotes because regardless of their position in life, they have faced a lot of trials and tribulations of their own, and in many cases they were health-oriented. There are a lot of people that we know of who have died recently because of cancer and because of heart problems and because of other kinds of issues. But the one thing is, okay, you hear about a famous person or a celebrity or a big person of influence having a disorder. It is a role model for yourselves to learn from. I'm not saying to learn from their expense, but I'm saying to, by viewing their situation, trying to make it into a way of improving on your own life. The other thing that I wanted to say to everybody out there is that you can't focus on things outside of your life when you are having problems like this. I mean, you could have health problems or legal problems or financial problems or whatever, but when I myself have gone through similar situations, I've always found myself saying certain statements to keep me in my flow. One is perception is everything. Now, that's my own quote. Perception is how you perceive your circumstance and whether or not it's going to help you or break you. At the same time, other people's perceptions of you while you're going through the circumstance, that could put you in the dance when you have to go out there and prove your character even when words alone do not help. So what you could do when you have certain health crises, again, like cancer, is go and set a stage around it and turn your character in how to deal with it, and therefore you become a positive source for people who also have it. I want also people to understand that I advocate acupuncture a lot because I'm just an acupuncture addict. The person that I was going to have on my show today, who unfortunately couldn't make it, is my acupuncturist, who, as I mentioned, has treated my father's prostate cancer, and he has done a lot of preventative treatments for me. I'm going to do a shout out to him, even though this is a shameless plug, but I am already looking forward to my next visit with him. His name is Dr. Gabriel Scher. If you're interested in learning more about his practice, you can find him on GabrielScher.com. He has his own website. His practice is located on Park Avenue and 21st Street. I've seen him relatively, well, aside from this past summer, I've seen him regularly for the past 4 years. And I can tell you that the kind of treatment that he has given to me on various aspects of my life has given me a high quality of life. So I'm recommending him if you want to seek acupuncture care. The other thing is that our recent conscious consultant quote that I read was inspiring, that I had to say, especially when you hear his show tomorrow, is that chaos is something that in particular, and again, this is my own version of what I understood, so if I'm not quoting it word for word, please forgive me out there. Chaos is something that we all face in life, and it is not the chaos itself that is the problem. It's the way we respond to it. Now, in terms of my own life, I've had a lot of chaos recently, but I have learned, especially by doing a show like this, I have learned to take that chaos and assemble it into a project to keep me focused in dealing with it. Now, the thing is that everyone is a different person and everyone has their own interpretations of their chaos. But if you take a quote like that, which right now, as I'm saying, it inspires me further, I basically say to you out there to incorporate it into your lifestyle, incorporate it into your quality of life, whether you have an illness or not, and do what you can to go ahead and not create a new script, but create an addition to the script you've already set out for your journey. Now, that means you'll be able to ride the wave, which I believe is also something that I read in that quote, and that you're owning your life and you're owning the circumstances that you've been given to use as a new process and a new stage of development and growth, because courage is what's going to maintain you, especially when you deal with all of the problems you're faced with. Now, I think just now I've spent the last 10 or 15 minutes giving a lot of mind perceptions, mindfulness thoughts, alternative treatment approaches, quotes, because what I'm trying to do with the topic of cancer is look at it as an opportunity in disguise. I can only say that because, as I said, I've lost about 5 or 6 people in my life over the last year, but 3 or 4 of them have remained, thank God, because they've been able to change their mindset. It's just a matter of learning to do it in your own time, but hopefully sooner than later, so that way you can be more of an advocate and an influencer rather than someone who might be a victim. And again, it is basically a mindset. So when you're incorporating your treatment, especially for a health issue like cancer, remember you got your medical treatments, you've got your alternative treatments, you've got your mindful treatments, and as I said earlier, you got your music too. Remember to create your own music, your own flow. Overall, though, I would have to say, if any of you have your own positive quotes to add to the mix, please tweet me at FrankHealthcare on Twitter, as well as my hashtag Frank About Health. Now, I guess because the topic is also about cancer, if you've got a community there, hashtag cancer, or whatever your type of cancer is, by all means, continue to communicate against that social group. And then when you get a chance to hear this show after streaming, link it to them. Let them all hear about this, because again, I'm using this episode to talk about cancer, but the direction and how to take it if you have it. Overall, though, what else can I tell you? I would say that, chemotherapy and radiation treatments and other kinds of, dialysis is for kidneys, but I don't know if that's fully related to cancer. But those kind of treatments have history, and history is not always foolproof. I mean, a lot of people have been able to maintain their lives during the disorder with it, but I guess, chemotherapy is that. It's chemicals. So what you need to do is try to find the the antioxidant chemicals to be able to have a full holistic sense of treatment with something like cancer. Well, let me see what else I can talk to you about. With respect to teas, I said to you that tea and green tea and white tea in particular were very influential in terms of being able to be preventative for cancer, as well as if you're treating it, to continue using it as an antioxidant. I want to give a quote that I read today in Wikipedia about green tea. It's shown to detoxify enzymes to protect against tumor development. I found that to be prolific. Evidence has shown that green tea has a majority impact on preventing cancer, but it's still in consideration with other teas like black tea and oolong tea. But white tea has become something that I found to be helpful. In fact, usually when I drink green tea, I sometimes find myself drinking a combination of the two together. I just have one tea bag of each. But I do notice it gives me a whole sense of replenishing whatever toxification had existed in my metabolism. And I could say from the research and how tea deals with your DNA and trying to prevent damage caused by the free radicals in the body, that tea is something to heavily consider. If you are going to Japanese restaurants regularly, get your green tea by the bottle. Get it by the carafe. I mean, I've been known to go to them and drink about 5 cups in one sitting and find myself totally refreshed. However, if you are going to special stores, like Bigelow Teas, or if you find anything like boxes of green tea from Hart and Harney or any of the others that exist out there, make sure that you can see the herbs in the bag. Those are the ones that are organic, and those are the ones that have proven to really have an impact on helping to support prevention of cancer. Alrighty, I think I'm going to go ahead and start planning the final segment of this show, where I'm going to give some other final thoughts and concluding about the topic of cancer. So I'll be right back.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network.
Are you into comics, movies, and pop culture at large? What about music and TV? Then you're in for a treat. This is Michael Dolce, your host on TalkingAlternative.com. I've been professionally writing comic books, screenplays, and music articles for almost 15 years. Catch my show, Secrets of the Sire, at its new primetime slot, Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and get the inside scoop on the pop culture universe you love to talk about. For more info, go to secretsofthesire.com.
TalkingAlternative.com.
Hey everybody, thank you for continuing listening to Frank About Health episode 9, where I'm talking about being frank about cancer. I've spent the last 45 minutes giving an overview, giving you a whole discussion on alternative treatments, and even thinking about all of you out there who may be suffering from other illnesses and relating to the possibility of a comorbidity relationship with it. This particular show, I'm going to be a little humble now, is dedicated to 5 particular people that unfortunately either they've lost someone in their lives or I've lost them personally. And for me, what I found a little bit disappointing is that it all happened consecutively. First person is my father. His name is also Frank, but as I said earlier, he's in remission and he has been living a better quality of life over the last 12 to 18 months, which is good. The second person is a cousin of mine. Her name is Lorna. She unfortunately had a 6 to 7 year battle with cancer that metastasized from breast to the brain, to the liver, to the kidneys, and she eventually passed on. But the thing is that we were already prepared for it because she was prepared for it. She did exactly what I've been saying throughout this whole show. She was even giving herself a party, celebrating her life, knowing that it was going to eventually end, but she was engaging with the family and saying exactly how she wanted her wake and everything in terms of how to celebrate her when she passed on. Another is a friend of mine named Angela. I don't know how long she has left. She's gotten to the pancreatic stage, but I do know from the friend who's taking care of her that she has lasted longer than she thought. She's in fact lasted 6 months longer thus far. I can tell you that Angela is a very strong woman from what I've heard, and I do believe she will continue to fight as best as she can until that day comes. Another is a former doctor I had. Again, first names only. Her name was Rosemary. Very good, influential person in my life. She actually lived where I live right now. She was a psychologist and she was a researcher, and unfortunately it was colorectal cancer that took her. But I remembered how prior to her death she continued to focus on making sure that every one of her patients, including myself, was continuing to focus on changing our own lives. She took her own issues and converted them into solutions for others. That's another reason why I'm dedicating the show to Rosemary. And I mentioned earlier that famous actor who was a ghost and who was a dirty dancer. Again, I would have to say he's the leading actor in my mind that comes to someone who lived an inspiring rest of his life through pancreatic cancer. And then there's another mutual friend of me and your conscious consultant who recently lost her mother. I'm not going to mention any more details than that, but I could tell you that she was the inspiration for me to help start this show, and at the same time to meet with your conscious consultant to start the show. And I can only hope that as I speak to her in the next few weeks, that she'll have even more inspiring things to say. I could tell you that having spoken to her about this for the last few weeks, she has already been preparing for it. She has already been accepting of it. She's been doing all that she could to keep the family supported. And even from when I spoke to her, she sounds at peace, at rest, because now the conflict is kind of behind her because they were preparing for the end. Overall, though, what I want everyone out there to do, this, as I said, this last segment of the show is for all of you to take away something from it, whether it's the first 45 minutes of information I gave, or whether it's my own appeal to people that have impacted my life, having suffered from cancer or having recovered from cancer. But cancer in itself is something to be understood as, I hate to use the word lifestyle, but cancer it exists probably every 2 to 3 people, in 2 to 1, 3 to 1, from what I've been hearing a lot and probably just personally experiencing. I think it's something that people have to go forward with in life and understand that it exists. There's a possibility, God forbid, you inherit it or get diagnosed with it. But it has to be understood from not only the medical viewpoints and the research viewpoints, but it has to be understood how it can generate because of a poor quality of life, maybe, like poor diet, not moving around the house, excessive alcohol, probably obesity, doing all that you can to reduce the negative ways that you're living your life right now to a point where cancer may never even be part of your own personal life's equation. I also want basically people out there to understand that as each episode of Frank About Health has brought it down to several layers of different disorders, it has also brought it down to different conclusions. Again, the conclusions depend on yourself. Are they economic? Are they alternative? How are you going to make improvements for family members that may have the illnesses in question? But it has to be kept completely mindful and informative. Again, another piece of information is that we're here to inspire each other. We're here to educate and empower each other. So if I've given you any discussions of cancer tonight, it's been for one goal, is to educate all of you in how to deal with it, interpret it, and help those who have it. Now, I should be able to indicate to you guys that cancer is one of the many disorders that I want to express on the show. Another one that I want to touch upon probably in the next few weeks is heart disease. But I think, again, having dealt with family members and friends who recently have had this episode with cancer, it just became very much in the forefront of my thinking with what it is that I can let you all know out there. Again, thankfully, I do not suffer from cancer at this moment, and nor do I hope that I won't. But I'm just hoping from my own experiences that those of you who are suffering from it right now will be able to make a change in the direction with the information you've had here tonight. I'm just actually going at this as a personal mission of mine to have people out there with various disorders, not just cancer, to just really do what you can to live a better quality of life. I've just discovered in my own life that if it wasn't for some of the treatments that I've undertaken, I would probably not be in the state of mind that I am in today. There were moments there where I thought that my dysfunctions, especially epilepsy, were just going to take me, for lack of a better way of saying it. What I do want to know is, for those of you out there who are suffering from cancer or diabetes or epilepsy or heart or whatever it is, please reach out to me. This show is here to serve as a beginning dialogue between me and the community out there. I also want everyone to understand that there are reasons for this show to exist from a medicinal standpoint, meaning, again, Mark's Marine Pharmacy, based out of Vancouver, Canada. They have provided me with the medications to help treat my disorders, but I can tell you again, their medications, I think, are also constructed through herbal treatments. They have done their own holistic treatment development, and at the same time, they continue to provide the kinds of drugs that you can find here for whatever your disorders are, but they do have a potency effect, which I've noticed that you cannot find as often here. So, for that being said, one thing that you should check out is canshipmeds.com. You can discuss with Jordan Rosenblatt, who was on the show about 5 weeks ago, that he would be able to have a conversation with you, especially if you're suffering from cancer. He can even give you a treatment protocol that probably you haven't thought of. I would say that when you have your pharmacist who's able to really talk with you and educate you about your disorder and the different kinds of traditional, medicinal, and even alternative treatments that you can have, that is going to be a full-fledged treatment protocol, especially when you're not around your doctor. You have to think independently about what your disease is bringing to your life. And again, an issue with cancer requires a thorough discussion, not only with your doctor, but your pharmacist and your own family. You have to continue to develop your own education model to live with this new lifestyle if this is unfortunately your diagnosis. But again, even from the perspective of not having this disorder, anything that I've told you tonight, you could be able to be a source of inspiration and support for those who you know that have this disorder. I don't know if it was some sort of a destiny or a karma for me to have suffered 5 losses in a period of 12 months. But what I did understand is that cancer in itself is not what I always thought it to be, just, heart cancer, liver cancer, whatever. I understood it to be an ecosystem. An organic ecosystem that is unfortunately not operating in the way it should be, and that it requires a macro viewpoint, meaning big picture viewpoint, that cancer is not just the problem. You have to find out what the solutions and the education aspects are. And again, I'm going to walk away from this episode saying that you need to focus on alternative treatments and inspiration, and also guidance from different mindful leaders that you may be talking to or blogging with or things like that, because when you have any kind of disorder, it is something that you have to incorporate into your life. Even if you're in remission, it's still part of your life in a historical way, so it becomes something that you have to share with those that are of major influence or major importance in your life. A lot of people out there on social media, I'm sure, have pages out there of specific diseases that they may have. I mean, again, cancer is something that I see on many different Facebook pages. I mean, I don't see them on personal friends' Facebook pages, but I have seen, the American Cancer Association, or have seen hospitals that talk about different cancer treatments on Facebook. But the blogging is going to be the most helpful thing, because at least you create a community and a dialogue. Cancer is something that is still going to be researched, is still going to be ongoing in certain people's lives, and is still going to be going through new means of protection, new means of support and treatment. But hopefully you out there can have an active role in that going forward. Well, I think we're at the end of another episode of Frank About Health. We have a few minutes out there. Again, I'm going to say at Frank Healthcare on Twitter, hashtag Frank About Health. You can reach me during the next week between now and the next episode yet to be discovered. But I will continue to be here for all of you on Twitter, and even when you hear the show streaming again, to talk to and reach out to, and hopefully I can continue to educate you on my own perspective of the disorder of discussion, and in this case, that had been cancer. Okay, thank you all for being frank with me about cancer. I will see you all, speak to you, and tweet you all next week. Thanks again.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network.
Hello, I'm JC.
I'm Joan, and welcome to 21st Century Entrepreneur.
We bring education,
Insight,
knowledge,
awareness,
trouble,
craziness, and fun
for you, the entrepreneur who's looking to build your business
and your community. Listen every Friday from noon to 1 Eastern on talkradio.nyc. And you can tweet us at 21st CE Radio or Talk Alternative.
Hey, all you crazy listeners. Looking to boost your business? Why not advertise on Talking Alternative with very reasonable rates? Interested? Simply email at info@talkingalternative.com. Talking Alternative.
Are you into comics, movies, and pop culture at large? What about music and TV? Then you're in for a treat. This is Michael Dolce, your host on talkingalternative.com. I've been professionally writing comic books, screenplays, and music articles for almost 15 years. Catch my show, Secrets of the Sire, at its new primetime slot, Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and get the inside scoop on the pop culture universe you love to talk about. For more info, go to secretsofthesire.com.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network at www.talkingalternative.com. Now, broadcasting 24 hours a day. Talking Alternative.
Hi, this is Rob Kay.
And I'm Cali Alpert.
And we're hosts of the Rob and Cali Show. Are you looking for a show that talks about real stuff like life, love, the pursuit of being yourself?
Then you have come to the right place, because we cover topics ranging from chivalry to gratitude to your relationship with money and everything in between.
So listen to us on the Rob and Cali Show, Tuesdays, 8 to 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network.